Personally, in the dry, I don't use the rear brake at all. So, and the way I usually illustrate that is once you've got the weight transfer, almost all of the braking will come from the front wheel because the rear wheel is barely touching the ground. So imagine there's a test and they say, okay, you've got 2 hours to do this test. The first question's 95% of the mark and the second question's 5% of the mark. Well, you're going to spend most of those 2 hours on the first question. So that's what I think the front brake is here. Almost all the performance comes from the front. So I concentrate on that. I also have broken this ankle a few times, so I'm not really good with the rear brake. However, in the rain, I do use the rear brake because I think they're balancing the bike's weight is very important. The very earliest form of traction control, flat trackers brought to road racing, and that was using the rear brake coming out of turns to calm down the back end, which by the way is hell on the rear brakes. But if, like for instance, Nicky Hayden, when he went to Grand Prix, they had to put a gigantic rear rotor and a great big caliper on the back of his Grand Prix bike because he's working the rear brake coming out of turns. So I'm not saying don't use the rear brake. It's absolutely fine to use the rear brake. I'm saying I don't think it's essential, and I'm saying it can be a distraction. Now, if you're a rear brake person and you always use it, keep on doing it. But remember too that without much weight on that rear wheel, because you've got all the compression on the front tires spread out, the suspension's down, you can feel that traction. When you're in that situation, there's very little weight on the back. So if you are aggressive with the rear brake, and of course your foot does not have nearly the sensitivity that your fingers do, you're going to have a problem. The risk of locking the rear braking, we've all seen the guys skipping and bouncing and they can't turn because they can't settle the back of the bike, skyrockets when you're using the rear brake. And don't forget too, that you're going to have to downshift while you're braking a lot harder than you're used to, which is why you'll always show me talking about the brakes with 1 or 2 fingers, because you have to be able to roll the throttle in those other fingers, right? So you're picking up the downshifts on the blip. And yeah, you can just dump the gears and let the clutch out, but I don't think you're going to enjoy that. It's going to make the bike pretty unstable. So you're going to have to get used to blipping the throttle. I think most people are aware of that, but here where it's really tight, you know, there will be times when you miss, you know, you're 1 gear high in the turn and you come out kind of boggy or whatever, and it's just, you know, that's going to happen at times. So are you happy with my answer?